one after another. He was in their offices. They said, this man walked in. Why is he going to know how the stock market operates? And at the end of an hour, they said, oh my God, he understands.
Hedge fund titan David Einhorn of Greenlight Capital is one of the believers.
Was he able to show you how your orders were being front run?
Oh yeah, they had a, they got the marker and the whiteboard and started drawing maps and boxes and wires and locations, and yeah, we went through it in some detail.
Did you find it interesting?
It was. It was.
Clients like Einhorn encouraged Brad and his team to do something bigger. That's when Katsuyama, a conformist even by Canadian standards, decided to do something radical. In 2012, he quit his high-paying job as head trader at RBC and went off with some of his team to start their own exchange.
You were making good money at Royal Bank of Canada.
Right. Yeah.
Millions of dollars.
Right. I guess everyone knows that now, right? Right, yeah.
Why did you want to go off and walk away from that job and start a stock exchange?
Yeah, it was an easy conversation to have with my wife, that's for sure. It almost felt like a sense of obligation to say we found a problem that's affecting millions and millions and millions of people. People are blindly losing money. They didn't, you know, they don't even know they're entitled to it. It's a hole in the bottom of the bucket.
They set out to build an exchange funded exclusively by large traditional investors. They called it IEX, the Investors Exchange, and quietly launched it in October with the support of some of the biggest players on Wall Street. And it comes with built-in speed bumps to eliminate the advantage of high-speed predators.
And the way they did it was they coiled 60 kilometers of fiber optic cable between themselves and the high-frequency traders' computers. So they call it the magic shoebox. It's a box and it looks like it's got fishing around it. But essentially, a high-frequency trader, if he tries to react on the IEX exchange, his trade goes for 60 kilometers until, so he's the beast Jesus.
So it gets there at the same time.
He gets there at the same time as everybody else.
You think that they can game you?
I think that they'll try to game us. I think the fact, though, that we've gone and met with the majority of the biggest high-frequency firms to explain what the magic shoebox is doing, that people haven't said, oh, that's rubbish, that won't work. We've had many ask us for a back door, to be honest, so that says something that it'll work.
We're up to 38.5 million shares.
The exchange is off to a strong start, although it is still very small, with lots of powerful enemies that, like the status quo, are trying to starve IEX by discouraging customers from using them. Greenlight Capital's David Einhorn is one of the investors.
Do you think IEX will survive?
I think it's going to succeed. I think it's going to succeed in a very big way.
Just last week, IEX received a strong endorsement from Goldman Sachs, whose top executives cited it as a model for a more stable and less complicated stock market.
We're selling trust. We're selling transparency. And to think that trust is actually a differentiator in a service business is kind of a crazy thought, right?
Why is this kid, why is he able to all of a sudden sit at the center of the American stock market? And the answer is, when someone walks in the door who is actually trustworthy, he has enormous power. And this is the story of trying to restore trust to the financial markets.
1日33円からのご寄付で、ひとり親家庭の生活が変わります。あなたのご寄付や応援のお気持ちは、ひとり親家庭のお腹を満たすだけでなく、生きていく意欲にもつながります。私は美咲、中学2年生です。シングルマザーのお母さんと9歳の妹と3人で暮らしています。お母さんは離婚してからパートをして必死に私たちを育ててくれています。生活はとても苦しいです。食べ物がほとんどない日もよくあります。そんな日の夕ご飯、お母さんは水だけで我慢しようとします。私は言います。給食いっぱい食べたし、ダイエットもしてるから夕ご飯はいらないよ。お母さんは多分私が我慢していると分かっています。だからありがとう、少しだけもらうねと言って泣きそうな顔でご飯を食べます。夕ご飯の時間の後は宿題をします。お腹が減って頭が働きません。夜もお腹が減って眠れません。次の日の学校、穴が開いた上履きが友達にわからないように気をつけて過ごします。お母 母さんに新しい上履きを買って
気になるものはある？
午前の授業はお腹が減っているので全然集中できません。ようやく給食の時間になりました。今日は2回おかわりしました。今日の夕ご飯もきっと少ないからたくさん食べておかないと。放課後、友達にファミレスでのテスト勉強に誘われたけど用事があると嘘をついて断りました。帰り道、どんよりとした空は私の心の中のようでした。高校はもっとお金がかかるし諦めようかな。そんなある日、テレビでニュースを見ているひとり親家庭を支援する NPO の特集をしていました。
気になるものはある？
グッドご飯といってひとり親家庭が無料で約1万円分の食べ物をもらえるのだそうです。パートから帰ってきたお母さんに伝えてすぐに申し込みました。そして食品配布の日、家族みんなで行くとびっくりするほどたくさんの食品をいただきました。中にはお米やパン以外にレトルト食品やお肉、そして野菜、果物などもたくさん入っていました。妹のアンがチョコやゼリーに大喜びでした。スタッフの方が笑顔で優しく話してくれてとても嬉しかった。その人はたくさん食べてねと言って食品の配布が寄付で成り立っていることを教えてくれました。帰り道、私たちのことを助けてくれる人がいるんだねとお母さんはちょっと泣いていました。妹のアンは言いました。いつも3人で頑張ってるご褒美なのか。その晩、食卓には肉じゃがやオレンジが並びました。とても美味しかったのでダイエットは一旦中止と言っておかわりしました。みんなで食べる夕ご飯ってこんなに楽しくて美味しいんだと心が温かくなりました。グッドご飯の支援を受け始めてから食費が浮くので家計も少し楽になったみたいです。参考書と新しい上履きを買いたいとお母さんに思い切って頼んでみるともちろんとお金を渡してくれました。もうお腹が減ってないから勉強に集中できるし参考書があるので勉強のやり方も分かってきました。小遣いももらえるようになって友達とファミレスのドリンクバーでおしゃべりして楽しかったです。その帰り道、空がとても綺麗に見えました。高校を諦めずに頑張ってみようかな。日本の一人親世帯のボランチから相対的貧困状態にあります。この日本を助けてぐっとありがとうね。グッドボックスの利用者は前年比で約 1.8 倍に急増しました。私たちは首都圏約40
Bank robbers long been dead and gone.
Papa was born here 42 years ago in the small farming community of David City, Nebraska, surrounded by populous counties. by John Hopkins.
And one morning, a friend of mine came running and screaming my name. Sean, Sean, Sean. And what he had was a copy of the USA Today, and I read the article and it said that the court had granted John Kelly's case.
What went through your mind?
I was shocked. I was shocked that the court had granted the case and that I had done something that, lawyers wait their whole lives to do. And done it the first time.
It's not that unusual for prisoners. What is
some kind of future when he got out, but he knew there were huge obstacles ahead.
Did you decide you wanted to be a lawyer while you were there?
I did, but I didn't think I could. I had had countless number of lawyers tell me I could not go to law school, and even if I could, I would never get licensed by any of the state bar associations, given my crimes.
When he was released to a halfway house near Omaha in 2008, he had never seen an iPhone, never been on the internet, and was computer illiterate. It was even by miracle he saw an ad for a document analyst at Cockle Legal Printing, one of just a few companies in the U.S. that helps attorneys assemble briefs for the Supreme Court. Andy Cockle and his sister Trish Bellotti remembered that Sean showed up for his interview in ill-fitting clothes with a rumpled letter from Seth Waxman and an 11-year gap in his resume.
We work with attorneys every day, all week long, that are trying to get their case granted, and none of them do. And this guy comes out and says, I had two of them granted.
So that, yeah.
Did you believe it?
No. I thought he was delusional.
But his story checked out, and they gave him the job.
You're glad you hired him.
Oh, yeah, it was sad to see him go.
He spent 3 years with the Cockles in Omaha, completing the undergraduate degree he'd begun in prison and continuing to impress the lawyers he worked with. With their help, and against all odds, the University of Washington Law School took a chance on him. He won a full scholarship from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and upon graduation, was admitted to the bar.
How did you do in law school?
Surprisingly well.
You're already a lawyer.
Well, I mean, it was a new experience doing well in school.
He did well enough to land a prestigious clerkship with the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, the second most important court in the country.
The idea that a convicted bank robber was going to go work for Janice Rogers Brown, a very conservative judge on a very important court, surprising in the absolute sense, yes. In the context of who Sean Hopwood is and what he was setting out to do, not that surprising.
A year later, it led to a highly competitive teaching fellowship at Georgetown Law's Appellate Litigation Clinic, where he did so well, the faculty awarded him a position as a professor of law.
How hard is it to get a job teaching law at Georgetown?
It's very hard.
Professor Stephen Goldblatt is the faculty director for the Supreme Court Institute at Georgetown Law.
To have somebody who's a credible voice who actually lived the experience, who understands what it's like to spend a day in prison, much less 11 years, is highly unusual. So I think this was a unique opportunity to get somebody for whom there are no others out there, and that the potential was enormous.
Along with his other accomplishments, Sean Hopwood also got to marry that girl from David City, Annie Metzner, who is now a law student herself. They have 2 children.
Are you surprised how this has turned out?
Yeah. I had no idea of what the future would hold for us. Neither one of us had any clue that all these wonderful things would happen.
Hopwood's main interest now is criminal justice reform. He's an advocate for shorter prison sentences for most crimes and more vocational training, drug treatment, and mental health counseling, which are often non-existent.
Prison is not the place for personal growth. We warehouse people and then we kick them out into the real world and with very little support and hope that a miracle happens.
But somehow, all the things stacked against you, you were able to do it.
Yeah, it was people that helped, that went out of their way to provide grace to me, that made the difference.
Over the years, we've done a number of stories about wrongly convicted prisoners who get exonerated when a crusading attorney takes on their case. In prisons around the world, however, that rarely happens. In Kenya, for example, more than 80% of inmates have never been represented by a lawyer. Justice Defenders would like to change that. It's an organization started in Africa by a soft-spoken 37-year-old lawyer named Alexander McLean. Justice Defenders has worked in 55 prisons in Kenya, Uganda, and the Gambia, giving legal training to hundreds of inmates who can then help their fellow prisoners, the innocent and the guilty, get a fair hearing in court. They are also helping some prisoners get law degrees. As we found out when we visited Kenya before the pandemic, results have been astounding. Thika Main Prison outside Nairobi is a miserable place. Built almost 70 years ago to hold 300 prisoners, when we visited 3 years ago, there were more than 1,000. In this one dank holding cell, 140 men were huddled together, the air thick with the smell of sweat and urine. They'd been accused of everything from trespassing and robbery to assault and murder. Some have already been convicted, but most have yet to stand trial. They can't afford bail, so they'll likely have to wait here for years.
Good afternoon, brothers. Our work is to help people who don't have lawyers to access justice.